I felt like a little kid. I was like literally jumping over logs and like getting muddy. It felt like super silly and playful. I think the biggest thing was that nobody was watching my fat jiggle. Nobody was timing me with a stopwatch like everyone's PE teacher, when you're running the mile. There was just none of that other stuff. I could run, or I could walk, or I could do whatever I wanted. And I didn't realize that running could be that. And that was like a moment. I hope that I will never forget that run.
What do you do when you come out as LGBTQ and love the outdoors? What do you do when you see the outdoor space ruled by older white cis men and desire a diverse community of outdoor lovers? Accept it, change it, create it. I am Justin Yoder, and this is LGBT Outdoors. Hey everyone, it's Justin Yoder coming with another episode of the LGBT Outdoors podcast. I am so excited that you are here with us and tuning in. We have a great episode lined up for you tonight with a special guest who we've actually talked to before, and so I'm super excited to get to talk to him again. Before we do that, I'm going to introduce my co-host, which is Patrick Thompson.
Hey everybody.
And JC Rienton.
Hey, hey.
Hey, hey.
I do want to say, what?
Are you in one of your moods?
No, like
a good mood. Hey, Patrick laughs like that's a bad thing.
We're starting off like that. Oh.
No,
all downhill.
A mood isn't necessarily a bad thing. He just seemed like he was in a really good mood.
Yes, well, our listeners can't see it right now, but yeah, I have a big smile on my face.
He does.
I had such a fun time recording our coming out episode with the rest of the board, and I'm just excited to be back for another episode, resurrected from the snowy mountains of Colorado.
That was a great episode. If you missed that episode, that was the last one, so go back and listen to it. You get to get a little bit of the inside of the LGBT Outdoors board, especially our coming out stories. So that was fun. Patrick, what's coming up with LGBT Outdoors that you know of?
Okay, so we never shut up about LGBT Outdoor Fest. we just finished LGBT Outdoor Fest 2023, and we are already deep in the planning stages of LGBT Outdoor Fest 2024. I know some super duper secret insider stuff, and it's great. It's really cool. Get excited. We're going to be announcing stuff relatively soon, and we really want y'all to get that on your calendar to come be part of this annual thing, this shindig, however you want to describe LGBT Outdoor Fest.
I will say it's kind of scary in a good way. Like whenever we have the Outdoor Fest, it just creates like more hype for the next year's Outdoor Fest. It happens all the time, and we always have people coming back because they're wanting more out of it. And so I don't know, it's a challenge for us because we have to kind of like one up ourselves for the next one, but it's been getting bigger and better and more like variety as far as like the activities and workshops. So I'm excited for next year.
Yeah, and we got some great feedback from the crew that was at 2023, and we're looking at all that, and we're hoping to make a couple little tweaks and big tweaks, honestly, to get everybody pumped up and excited. So let's do it.
Can't wait.
We're going to do it. We're going to do it. Just throw one thing out there just to give it away. We are going to be bumping it up from a 3-day event to a 4-day event. So get ready for that.
Yep.
But
more
the
days.
Days.
there's gonna be some great additions, I guess you could say, to it. So anyways,
Yep.
I will also say that it probably will sell out. Colorado last year sold out, and I am thinking it's going to sell out again this year. So anyways, that's exciting. So keep an eye out for that. It'll be on our website, LGBT Outdoors, once it all goes live. But I want to jump in with our guest for today.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot to unpack with him. And I'm just excited because there's some new things going on in his life too. So we have our guest is Jeffrey Binney, and he is a motivational speaker, comedian, ultramarathon runner, traveler, amazing all around great guy, and loves to dance in the woods. Did I miss anything?
I think that was spot on.
Awesome.
That's good.
How have you been?
Oh, just dandy. Thanks for having me again. It's been a while. It's been a long while. I didn't realize how long it has been.
3 years,
right?
That's what he said. Yeah. It's wild.
I do want to hear more, but I mean, everyone out of here, like, I don't know. This predates me with what happened 3 years ago. I would like to know.
It was crazy. I don't even know if we can talk about it.
What?
3 years
juicy.
ago, not really. But 3 years ago, we were in lockdown and trying to figure out how to connect our community with the outdoors before we even had a podcast. And so Patrick, I think, actually came up with the idea of doing what we called LGBT Outdoors Live on YouTube. And there's still quite a few episodes that are out and up there. So if you want to go back and listen to that, just check out, go to YouTube, search LGBT Outdoors, Jeffrey Binney, and his episode will come out. And there's a lot of other great episodes that you guys can watch on there as well. But for those of you of us that are new to you, give us an introduction.
Oh my gosh. Well, it all started on a pig farm in 1982 in rural Missouri.
And the funny thing is, you aren't kidding.
I'm not joking, actually. It's actually dead serious. I grew up
Is this going?
grew up on a pig farm in Missouri, and even more alarmingly, I am 41. So yes, that was all true. I don't know. How do I introduce myself? I don't know. I grew up on a pig farm in Missouri, spent a decade working as an actor in and out of New York, and then transitioned to being foolish enough to do stand-up. And at the same time, my mom, who had been diagnosed with heart failure 17 years earlier, finally lost that battle. And it was pretty straightforward, the cause. I mean, it was, lifestyle, obesity. And so it was a little bit of a wake-up call for me. So I discovered ultra running, and as people tend to do, got completely obsessed and decided to run my first 100-mile ultramarathon. And I also was wanting to work on my own creative project at the same time. So I made a little indie film called Once Is Enough. It's on Amazon Prime. It's half documentary following the whole experience of training for and running a 100-mile ultramarathon. And then I wrote my first hour of storytelling stand-up. So anyway, that's the film. And I think right after that is when I met the two of you, because I think I was promoting that film at the time. And since then, I have continued to run. I have was lucky enough to have some silly reels on TikTok of me dancing in my trail running gear in the woods that performed really well. And I ended up with some social media followers, and that has given me, it's put me where I am now, which is, it's given me a platform to promote inclusivity, diversity in not only the running community, but, the outdoor community by and large. And my main sponsor is Brooks Running. I'm one of their Run Happy advocates, which is a program that they started a couple years ago And the whole goal is they're not trying to sell shoes. They're not trying to sell running clothes. We are their investment in the running community to increase diversity. So I'm focused on reaching out to the gay and plus size athletic community. Some of us are focused on the indigenous community, the Black community, the trans community. So anyway, that's what I'm up to now. And I give Brooks props every chance I get, because I think it's pretty cool that they're, investing in something like that. So anyway, that's me and what I'm up to.
Anytime
that's awesome.
A company's willing to, put their name out there, and raise their hand and say, like, hey, like, I want to be an advocate. I want to be an ally. Like, I'm all about amplifying that voice, because that's a big deal, especially in kind of the outdoor world,
Yeah, and this was a tricky year. I was also lucky enough to be one of the faces of their Pride campaigns this year.
It's awesome.
And this was a pretty complicated year to be involved in Pride Month social media sponsorship campaigns. And they couldn't have been better. So very appreciative.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Love hearing that. I kind of want to go down that rabbit hole of Pride, but I think before we do, can we get an insight into you about like what your coming out story is and what it was like?
Yeah, it was fairly uneventful. A lot of different ways in my life, but I really shouldn't have had it as easy as I did. I mean, I grew up, in outside a town of 205 people. A very religious community. I grew up in the church, and I don't know if it was white dude privilege or what it was, but I just got so many passes. My family was also, my mom was very well known in the community. My family was upper middle class, and I don't know, but for all the reasons, I think I just got a pass on almost everything. It was fine. It was fine. And I am so grateful for that, because we all have plenty of friends who didn't have that experience. But I really did. I mean, the thing was, my tactic was to like wait until it was so obvious that it was a non-event. And it was totally effective. Like, it totally worked. I just made sure everyone had already figured it out on their own, so that then it wasn't a surprise.
I love that so much.
Whatever conversation you were gonna have, you wanted it to be like, yes, Jeffrey, we knew. Like, they're the last one to know.
Yeah, I mean, it was Grundy County, Missouri's worst kept secret, but I didn't like officially have the conversation with my dad until I was like probably 28 or 29. And, like considering who I am, where I grew up, who my dad is. My dad has never lived outside of a 2-mile radius of the home he was brought home from the hospital to. Like, he is as Missouri farmer as they get. And the conversation went, I was just like, hey, this is he's not good with uncomfortable conversations. So I gave him a warning. I said, hey, this is an awkward conversation and it can't possibly come as a surprise, but just so you know, I'm gay. And he just sat there for a couple seconds and he said, so? Which, like, wow. That's really sweet.
That's good, right?
If you know him, he's not a man of many words. And I think he said a lot with one word. So that was the most eventful story. All my friends were also like, totally. I mean, I was a theater major, so of course nobody had a problem with it. But that was it. It was.
Sounds like a win.
A very lucky coming out experience, I think.
Nice. And you almost kind of pause when I ask that, but like, I want there, and I long for the day when that's the common coming out story. Mm-hmm. Like we mentioned a while ago, our board did the last episode of our coming out stories for National Coming Out Day, and for the most part, ours was most of our boards was a little rougher, and whatnot. And so I feel like there's this thing in the community where we feel like, I don't know that we need a rough story, but you just kind of expect it to be a rough coming out story. And it's like, well, how rough is yours? And, and whatnot. But just to hear like, it was good. Yeah. Like that's what we need more of. And I think that that's like one reason why National Coming Out Day is so important, is to try to raise awareness that times are changing. Yes, of course, there's so many laws and BS and everything going on right now. But at the same time, we're kind of at the best place that we've been for our community in history, and more people are becoming more and more okay with it. So to be able to hear a story where it's like, yeah, my parents were cool with it and accepted me, then I mean, that's amazing.
You want it to like not make it like a big deal. Like you don't want to make it a big deal. It's just,
Yeah.
Well, I think, not to say it wasn't stressful though. I mean,
sure.
the thing I think I'm most grateful for is that I can say like, oh, I was so worried about it and I shouldn't have been. And that's not very many people can say, oh, I should have been less worried about coming out.
Yeah,
I don't know.
No, that's cool. That's great. Do you think there's anything, do you have any ideas why your parents were so cool with it? I don't know if you remember or not, probably not, totally fine. But I'm from Missouri as well. Grew up on a farm. And totally opposite situation. You said your dad hasn't ever lived anywhere within a 2-mile radius of where he was born. I think my mom might go 4 miles outside of where she was born, barely. So I could totally relate to that. My experience very different. But what do you think that it was, especially in a rural setting, that made it okay for your parents to be able to just be cool with it?
I think the like first and foremost, again, I say that was my tactic, but it was kind of like built in. I'm sure it was obvious since I was 3 or 4 that I was probably a little homo on that pig farm, because I was never a good farm boy. I was never into sports. I was never into the outdoors. I was never into anything. I was into cheerleading and learning how to use the baton, the marching band baton. I was doing one-man versions of Les Mis in the bay window in my parents' bedroom. It was it was so obvious. So, I think first and foremost, I think they had like a whole life of like kind of understanding that's where it was headed.
Yeah.
But I also am really grateful that I didn't, the Midwestern way. I mean, I'm my dad's only son. I have one sister. I'm his only son. Our farms have been in our family for generations. It is my duty to take over the farm, to be the steward of our land that has been in the family for, a couple hundred years, which I realize by anywhere else in the world standard is a very short amount of time. But in the US, that's a long time to own, for a family to own a plot of land. And shockingly, my dad, again, not a surprise, I hated farming when I was a little kid. I could not wait to get off that farm. But he didn't really pressure me. He didn't really, probably because he didn't trust me with it. He never pressured me. So I don't know what it was. My parents were both. My dad is very book smart. My mom was very socially savvy, and she was very worldly. And even though my dad never lived outside of a couple miles of his childhood home, it was really important to my parents that we traveled every year. And so every summer, some years we could just afford to go to Arkansas, but some years we went to Hawaii. Some years we went to Colorado. So even though I don't think most people would describe them as worldly, they were really, really invested in my sister and I getting out of Grundy County. So I think they had they had a concept of the rest of the world. I mean, I think that's where so much bigotry comes from, is people just literally not having the experience of knowing someone that they think is the enemy. And I think luckily they didn't have that. They had left Trenton, Missouri.
Preach.
We were super involved in the church too, but also in those small towns, it's a social activity. So, my parents went to church religiously, but I don't know that I would call them particularly religious. It just literally was kind of the only social activity where I grew up. So where in Missouri were you from, Justin? Are you from near me, near Jamesport? I'm making assumptions based off your last name that your people are either Amish or Mennonite. Is that an inaccurate, inappropriate assumption to make?
Yeah. My dad was raised Amish in Kansas. My mom was raised Mennonite in Missouri. Grew up on the farm. Closest town was Garden City, Missouri, which is about 45 minutes southeast of Kansas City.
My sister was a policewoman there for a few years. My sister and I switched. City? Yeah, my sister and I switched gender roles. She became a undercover narcotics officer, this badass bee, and I went off to New York to float out on stage and tell poop jokes. But she was a cop in Garden City for 3 or 4 years, something like that.
Wow.
There's a house on the highway as you're going by Garden City that used to have a big pool in the backyard, and there's tons of land there and a little pond. Do you know what I'm talking about? That was the house she lived in.
Right outside, right across the bridge when you're entering Garden City?
Yeah. Well, what's that a highway that goes through Garden City?
7.
Probably.
7 is the main highway that comes down from Harrisonville, close to Kansas City.
I'm just having the self-awareness of realizing that I'm totally doing the oh, you're gay? Oh, I have a gay friend from Seattle. His name's Jacob. Do you know him? I'm totally doing that to you.
Wait, but no. When you're in Garden City, okay, so my graduating class was 63 people. Not only did I know everybody in my class, I pretty much knew everybody in my high school. And so I moved to Texas, and when I was dating Patrick, he was like, "Oh yeah, my graduating class was 800." I was like, "No, you mean your high school was 800?" He's like, "No, my graduating class." I'm like,
"Wow,
how is that? How is that
that's a big class?"
Mine was quite a bit bigger than yours. I think we had 74. So,
oh wow, yeah.
City.
Yeah, no, that's funny though. Yeah, little Garden City.
Anyway, you asked me a question, and I took us on all kinds of tangents. What did I even answer your question?
Depends what my question was. I don't remember now either.
I mean, you were asking about what about his parents that?
Oh yeah. You did, because you were talking about you were talking about traveling,
being worldly, and
yeah. And I don't have the quote memorized, but it was making me think of that quote by Mark Twain, also Missouri.
I might know it.
What's that?
I said I might know it. I'm a big Mark Twain fan. What, being a fellow Missourian and all.
Sure, you may then. But basically, the saying that travel is fatal to being to not being prejudiced and bigotry. Mm-hmm. So, I wish I had it memorized. But
it's so true. So true.
Well, that's amazing. I love that. Oh, go ahead, Patrick.
Well, I was gonna get to a little bit more background. I get when you were introducing yourself, Jeffrey. You say something, oh yeah, I do ultra marathons and I ran a 100-mile race, and I just kind of skimmed over the fact that you went into a 100-mile race, Jeffrey.
Casually.
Yeah. And you're just oh yeah, no big deal. For us mere mortals, that's an astounding feat. We've already talked to you about this, and we have seen your film Once Is Enough. Totally watch it. Is it still on Amazon?
It's on Amazon Prime. I don't know, some other random platform. Sometimes it's free on YouTube. The distributor will make it free for like a month here and there. So you catch it free on YouTube.
But give us just a little bit of taste of that experience. You can avoid spoilers if you want, but it's a fun story for watching it. Like, but participating, I don't know if I would personally call that fun. But
it's a special type of fun.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, it started, the end for my mom, unfortunately, was almost 3 months in the ICU. And I was living in New York at the time, so I came back to Missouri, but our farm was 2 hours from Kansas City. So we had a hotel room next to the hospital, but I don't know. It felt weird to like cross the street and go chill in our 4-star hotel while my mom was laying in an ICU bed. So anyway, I spent a lot of time in the waiting room. I slept in the waiting room. It became an inside joke that I slept in the waiting room. And, the hospital had this, I'm already taking us off topic, but the hospital had this woman who I'd be interested to see like her job description on paper. She was just like, I don't know, like she was like the human, like the human from the hospital who was there like for the humans. And it became an inside joke that I was sleeping on the waiting room floor, and she started leaving me chocolates on my pillow like some hotels do. So anyway, I was spending all this time in the waiting room, and they had a subscription to Trail Runner magazine, which at the time I thought was like hilariously obscure. And I was like, oh, how silly that they have these random magazines. But I kept picking it up and like kept getting more and more obsessed with the idea. And, we had a really particularly bad hospital day where we got, kind of the worst news possible. And I just went out on a whim and bought a pair of running shoes. They were the worst. They were the stupidest shoes. I got those 5-finger, like neoprene Vibram barefoot shoes, And it was February in Missouri. A guy literally, I didn't realize until months later, a guy literally made fun of me on the trail, but he did it like in a sly way. And it wasn't until I knew slightly more about what I was doing that I was like, oh, that guy was making fun of me. That guy was totally making fun of my shoes. Anyway, I hopped out on the... What?
Nice shoes, dude.
It was just like rife with sarcasm. He said something like, "Oh, nice shoes. Those like great choice for today," or something to that effect. And I was like, "Yeah, man, I got it right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much." Anyway,
and it like that run, I was instantly hooked. It was. I felt like a little kid. I was like literally jumping over logs and like getting muddy. It felt like super silly and playful. I think the biggest thing was that there was nobody else there. Like nobody was watching my fat jiggle. Nobody was timing me with a stopwatch. Like everyone's PE teacher, when you're running the mile, there was just none of that other stuff. I could run or I could walk or I could do whatever I wanted. And I didn't realize that running could be that. And that was like, I don't know. That was like a moment. I hope that I will never forget that run because I remember it partly because it was a pretty rough day, but I just remember it so vividly. And I just got obsessed. Like, I tend to do that. And honestly, it's a shock that, gosh, my 100-miler was 6 years ago at this point. And wow. It's a shock that I'm still running because that's not a very Jeffrey thing to do. I'm a collector of being better than average at things. What is the saying?
Jack of all trades, master of none.
Jack of all trades, yes. Jack of all trades, master of none. And there's no phrase that describes me more accurately. But I got obsessed, and I started with a 20-mile run that I actually had signed up for while she was still in the hospital, and I thought I wasn't going to do it, and I decided at the last minute to do it, and it was terrible. I mean, I had a blast, but it didn't go well. My sister was at the finish line, and they were like, "Yeah, he must have finished earlier because there's no more runners out." Like they were tearing the finish line down, and along I came. But I had a blast. Like I loved it, and so I signed up for a 50-miler, and I did the North Face Endurance Challenge, which is outside of San Francisco in the Marin Headlands. And same story. It was brutal, but I just freaking loved it. Like there was, I think I think the thing that I was enjoying the most is that, I had spent my whole life kind of being labeled as like the cute, funny, charming, gay indoor kid, of Jim and Deb's. And I was okay with that. It wasn't a problem. I was just like, yeah, that is me. Like, I am not outdoorsy. I am not an athlete. I am not all those things. And then it turned out like, well, number one, I am kind of those things. And number two, as it turns out, I'm also like a secret badass. And I had, nobody was more surprised than I was. And I think that's what hooked me was like, it was like, no, I'm actually like the shit. And just nobody realized it. And so it became this like really awesome badge of pride. I mean, there's nobody who runs a 100-mile ultra marathon that doesn't love hearing people talk about how incredible it is. I mean, it's like actors saying they don't like attention. Both are false. But anyway, I don't know what I was saying. Did I answer that question?
Yeah. I mean, like it's. I just wanted to touch on it because, like, me being a non-runner, I feel like it's a huge achievement, and for the bulk of humanity, like that's just a highly improbable situation for most.
Well, I think that's the cool thing about it is a lot of people would never want to do it, like for obvious reasons. And there's nothing wrong with never having any desire to do that ever. But if you are someone who wants to do it, the like really cool thing about it is that nearly everyone who is capable of running is capable of running a 100-mile ultramarathon. And that's the cool thing about it is it does sound wild, but it's the brick wall metaphor where like nobody can take down a brick wall on their own, but if you give someone an axe and 10 years and every day they get to chip away a little bit more at it, in 10 years they've taken the wall down. And it's that's the same thing with ultra running is when I first started I couldn't even run a quarter of a mile without taking a break, and so I just pushed myself to run a half a mile and then 3/4 of a mile and then a mile and then 2 and then 4 and suddenly another really memorable run for me. I was training for the Wasatch 100 in Utah, and it was my last training run. And I went out in the mountains. I left from Brighton, which was one of the resorts, and I did 30 or 31 miles. And I got back to my car, and I had a beer and some food and some orange juice and some water, and I felt awesome. And that was like mind-blowing for me because I had done tons of long runs before, but never had I finished one and been like, that was all right. Like I was always ruined, like literally crippled for a day or two after my long runs. And so, it is all about just like building up volume and like I would love to say that I'm a superstar and that, there's only a select few who could ever dream to achieve something like this, but it's really not true. Like if you really, really want to do it and you have a really motivating reason for wanting to do it and you are physically capable of running, you can totally run 100-miler. It's just going to be really hard. And it's okay if you don't want to do it, but you can do it if you want to, for sure.
Right on.
Take your indoors outdoors with Spacious Skies Campgrounds, a collection of 15 campgrounds and RV parks spanning the eastern United States. Each location is unique, but all offer the perfect escape to the great outdoors if you're looking to spend quality time with your friends and family or simply need a scenic home base for your nearby adventures. Choose from RV sites, cabins, yurts, retro RV rentals, or tent sites, and enjoy on-site amenities that offer convenience, creature comforts, and fun. Visit spaciousskiescampgrounds.com for more information and easy online booking. We welcome and invite all campers to camp on with Spacious Skies Campgrounds. This episode of the LGBT Outdoors podcast is brought to you by the Monterey Bay Aquarium, where you can experience the wonder beneath the waves and celebrate your connection to the ocean. Join Monterey Bay Aquarium in advocating for a healthy ocean. Together, we can tackle climate change and stop plastic pollutions at the source. Sign up for the Ocean Action email to learn how you can protect the oceans that connect us all at montereybayaquarium.org/act. You participated in the Rockies run as well, right? Which is an LGBTQ run?
Well, I think,
or is
it's just super
more
inclusive.
trans?
I think we might have talked last time we talked. I think it might have been right before I did that race. It's a 6-day. There's also a 3-day version, but it's a 6-day stage race in Colorado. It starts near Buena Vista, I think. Is that a town?
Yeah,
sounds like
I'm pretty sure.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
Awesome. Yeah, then you go up through like Leadville and whatnot, and you end in Aspen, I think. So it's like 130 miles spread out over 6 days. And yeah, it was incredible. I had never done a stage race, and I also have never done a race that's more inclusive in a lot of different ways. First of all, in full transparency, I was offered a complimentary spot because they're like PR spots to people in the LGBTQ plus community. We Off the Couch is a predominantly Black running club from Baltimore. They sponsored runners coming from them. Also, the Harlem Run Club in Harlem, New York. So they're just like, and also her name. Oh gosh. I'm pretty sure her name's Patty. I just can't remember her last name. She was the first trans athlete to complete the Trans Rockies run, and she wrote their trans athlete policy. And the first night of the race, they are really, really purposeful to have someone on stage who talks about all these initiatives just to make sure that everyone knows that they're welcome. So it's pretty cool because a lot of races aren't doing that. Yeah, it's very like purposeful. It's not just a blurb in the race info or something like that. Like they really put it out front. And also speed inclusivity. Myrna. Do you know Myrna? Valerio, she's if you don't know her, she's a plus size Black runner. I would not even run her, like outdoor enthusiast. She skis, she does like all the things. But she had done the race, I think 4 or 5 years ago. And there's one day, it's Hope Pass. It's the shortest day, but hands down the hardest day. And she just said to the race organizers, and she's kind of a big deal. Like she's like a big deal on social media. So it wasn't just a random runner going to the race organizer. But she said, hey, here's the deal. Like, I know that I can't make the cutoff. Like, should I just sit today out? Should I, what should I do? And they're like, well, what if you start early? And so she did, and it turned into, they call it Dawn Patrol. And so now every day of the race, depending on how difficult the day is, if you are worried about missing the time cutoff, you can start earlier than everyone else. There are people who hike the Trans Rockies run, and there just aren't, as a bigger runner who like always has time cutoffs, like chasing them down the trail, like that's epic. That is unheard of. I don't know of any race. I'm sure there are other races that are doing something like that, but it's definitely not widespread enough that I have seen another race doing that. And so, like as a big runner, that's really epic, because a lot of ultra marathons are like just a non-starter for a bigger person. And going back to what I was saying earlier, I mean, that's another thing that drew me to trail running, was that it was not about or ultra running is, for most people, not about speed. It's about surviving. It's about finding a way to get to the finish line. And it's not just about being fast or like super fleet on your feet. It's also about planning your food. It's also about more than anything, your like mental fortitude. And so that's why I was so into it, because it was so much more than just like, oh, am I like the like fastest, most elite athlete? So no race embodies the like quirky trail running vibe more than the Trans Rockies run. So anyway, I kind of went off on a tangent, awesome. But I just feel really strong about it. It was a really good experience.
You mentioned that was over 6 days, like for the whole thing?
Yeah, there's a 6-day version, but you can just do 3 days. They also have the option to just join for the first 3 days, and then you quit.
I'm very new to like the concept of, I've never ran an ultra marathon. All of my runs are like in hours or
Well, this is a
minutes.
great way to start. I mean, it's a different challenge. You know, there were days that I was like, you know what? I feel like running 100 miles straight through might be easier than running 25 miles, having some beers with friends at camp, waking up the next morning at 4 a.m. and convincing myself to go out and run another 25 miles.
Yeah.
It might be easier to just get it all done in one day.
Well, tell us like the sleeping arrangements. Like, did you? Was there a point where like your tent is waiting for you on the next end, or are you carrying it with you, or like what's?
Yeah, the logistics of this thing are bonkers. You know, it is a pricier race, but it's because of what I'm about to tell you. So at every finish line, they have camp set up. So they have set up hundreds of tents. You either share, they'll if you want to like do a shared tent, they'll assign you a roommate for a tent, or you can pay a little extra to have your own tent. So you get to the finish line. All the tents are set up. They let you know where your tent is. They move a giant duffel bag for you every day. So they bring your duffel bag to your tent and let you know which tent is yours. And then there's also like a huge circus tent that they relocate every day. And that is where the kitchens and like the big like dining hall and like stage are. And then they have a thing they call it Chillville. They set up this area. It was kind of like a typical race finish line with vendors and whatnot. But they have all of these coolers of beer and hammocks and fire pits. It's called Chillville. The showers are this huge semi truck that they like relocate. So I mean, it's all that to say, like it's a big operation, and you are camping, but it's pretty comfortable as camping goes, because pretty much everything is done for you.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Pretty cool. Anyway, this is not an advertisement for the Trans Rockies run. We can talk about something else. I just have a lot of things to say about it.
It sounds like a good one for.
I'm intrigued.
Sounds like a good one for people to do, though, if they're going to do one, especially if they're a part of the LGBTQ community. So,
especially if it's a great race if you're wanting to like dip your toes into that world, but you're not ready to commit to like a 50 miler or 100 miler. It's a great first. Still very hard, but again, like you could walk it and finish.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Anyway.
So I know there's been a lot of other things going on in your life too since we last talked, especially when it comes to traveling. I'd love to kind of chat a little bit about that because of course our community loves to travel a lot. So tell us a little bit how that kind of developed and what you have going on with it.
Yeah, it's a little too good to be true. A couple of years ago, I ended up with some social media followers. I had a video, which I think we talked maybe right after that had happened. Do you remember that scene from Dirty Dancing where she's going across a bridge trying to learn the choreography and she gets frustrated and she like kicks the bridge? I don't know if you remember that or not, but in Utah, there was this trail that I was used to run on that had this like bridge that vaguely reminded me of that bridge. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to make a reel recreating that scene of her on the bridge, but in my trail running costume. And I don't know what it's at over 10 million views now. And it took me from 8,000 followers to like 105,000 followers. So like anyone any influencer who's like, oh yeah, I worked really hard and got the followers I deserved. You can call BS on that because they may have worked really hard, but they also got super freaking lucky. But anyway, along with those Facebook followers, along with that audience, came this wild opportunity. My friend, who's a food influencer, had been hosting trips where her followers can travel with her, and she gets to travel for free. And she was like, "You should do it." And I was like, "Oh, okay, sure. Like, let me plan a trip to Yellowstone, but like, who's gonna, sign up to travel across the country and camp with some random dude from the Instagram?" Well, it turns out a lot of people. It's sold out in like less than an hour, and so I started planning more trips. And that first one was so, honestly, it was for super selfish reasons. Like I was just like, oh yeah, of course, a free trip. That sounds incredible.
Absolutely.
But then I quickly realized that there was a lot more to it. I think I discounted how terrifying travel is for some people, how uh, emotionally stressful or socially stressful traveling can be, especially like traveling alone with a group of strangers. I would love it, but a lot of people wouldn't. And then, like, that's not mentioning the physical effort, which all the trips are not like a huge physical effort, but some of them are. And getting to be like responsible for that person going to Patagonia and hiking the hardest hike they have ever hiked in their life, and getting to the top and getting to be there and like share that with them. I just like immediately realized there was so much like more to it than just getting a free trip. And so I'm like kind of hooked now. We went to Banff, Canada in June. We went to Patagonia in February. We just got back from Nepal. We did the Annapurna Base Camp trek. And then in Iceland, we're going to see the Northern Lights. And
I'm so jealous.
So it's just like, it's surreal. It's hard to believe that's that's what's happening, but that's what's happening. And so I also launched a YouTube channel. I felt like if I had like all these adventures with all these interesting people, that I needed to like figure out a way to kind of share those stories. So I launched a YouTube channel in July, and it's also nice for it to not be all about me. It's nice to be able to feature other people and their stories and find out why they're there and what, what's going on with them.
Have you found that a lot of your travelers are members of the queer community, or is there a mix? Or
yeah, it's definitely a mix. We've had, I don't know, I would say maybe around 25% is probably a part of our community. There's also a lot of people I don't know too, honestly. There's a lot of people that like where it didn't come up, and so I don't know. But one thing that's really important for me, especially like now knowing how stressful travel can be for some people, is making sure that I don't have any responsibility on these trips aside from like being the vibe patrol, the being in charge of the vibes. And it's really important to me that everyone's like feels super comfortable, because I know it's already stressful, like to be traveling, to be with strangers. And we've had trans folk on the trips, and I think they've had a great experience. It's the thing, maybe the very coolest thing selfishly about these trips is like how cool everybody is. That's everyone's first question, or my friend's first question is like, oh my gosh, like you've got some crazy people, like tell us your stories, like I'm sure you've had some wild things happen. And I haven't. Everyone's been awesome. Like it's that like summer camp feel where like you arrived with a bunch of strangers and then everyone's crying when they're saying goodbye. Yep. And that's like super rewarding for me, like to know like, hey, I can grab 16 random people out of my audience and they're almost always kick ass. Like, okay, that's cool. That's cool, because a lot of my influencer friends can't say the same thing. So that's a little badge of pride that I wear. I think my follower base is kind. That's how I would describe them.
Oh wow,
they're all kind.
I love that.
Of many ways that you could describe them, I think that's probably the best adjective that anybody could hope for.
And I don't know what my brand is, but if my brand is attracting kind people, then I'm gonna I'm gonna keep plugging forward.
Well, you're pulling a minority, because I feel like social media nowadays is just like you're waiting to get criticized and
it's a pretty rough place.
Be put under a microscope in some places.
I was an actor in theater for a while though, and there's nobody more brutal than theater reviewers, so I can handle just about anything.
Well, just theater people in general can be so
no room for mediocrity. Everyone loves holding other people to standards that they can't themselves be held to.
Yeah, and like the understudies in the wings, and you can like hear their eyes rolling back in their head.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I spent some time as an understudy. That's a complicated gig.
I love hearing that the traveling and the trips are going well. When I was looking at your website, I was seeing like the different trips, and it was like sold out, sold out, sold out, sold out. I was like, wow, this is amazing. So,
I think everyone's just so excited out of COVID. In the travel industry, they've coined it revenge travel, but people were just so pissed they had been holed up for so long that people are just traveling out of spite. I think it's calming down, but
like aside from these gorgeous places and going to Iceland and seeing the Northern Lights, which is on my bucket list, you do these little TikTok dances. He's rolling his eyes. I think it's amazing. Like, getting strangers or who were strangers maybe a couple days ago, and just doing a little dance on a bridge, which is fun choreography. Excuse me, fun choreography, by the way. It's fun, and it also makes it less intimidating. Like it makes it feel to anybody who's watching like, oh, those are people that I can hang out with. Like that is an adventure that like I could feel comfortable on. And so kudos to you for that.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah. I mean, those videos are mildly cringy, but I think, well, when I was thinking about, it took me like 24 hours to decide I wanted to run a 100-miler. But when I made that choice, I consumed every bit of media that existed about 100-mile races. I watched every movie. I read every book. I read every blog post. I watched every YouTube video. And it was all super helpful and inspiring and awesome. But none of those films or books were about a 40-year-old 6'2" chubby lumberjack trying to run a 100-mile ultramarathon. But when I was at the starting lines of these races, I was seeing me. I was seeing people in their 60s. I was seeing people as big or bigger than me. The Rocky Raccoon 100 that I finished in the film, there was a man there. He had a whole crew with him because he was setting the Guinness Book World Record for being the heaviest human to complete a 100-mile ultramarathon. So these people were doing these races, but I wasn't seeing them anywhere. And once these silly dance TikToks started to take off, I realized that that was the benefit of them. It's because people take the outdoors so seriously. People get so intense about it, and it's so intimidating. And it doesn't have to be. It doesn't matter if you're fast. It doesn't matter if you sing in the middle of the trail. It doesn't matter if you stop for a dance break. Like, go have fun. Like, if the outdoors is not fun anymore, then we've got a fundamental problem. And so I think that's why these do well, is because it gives permission to be silly and not take their long run as seriously. I understand if you're a committed runner that, you do need to train and you do need to hit goals, but you also need to have fun, or what's the frickin' point? Or at least that's my opinion.
In like being active in the fitness space, it's like a personal journey. Like even in spaces where you're right next to other people who are running or lifting or doing all these things, at the end of the day, it's what you want to do for yourself. It's your journey. It's what you want to get out of it, no matter what the other people are doing. Go enjoy yourself.
Absolutely.
If you're not having fun, it doesn't matter how the rest of them are doing. It's what you're getting out of the experience.
Yep. So I mean, the to the fast runners, kudos. But just so you know, we're having more fun in the back. Without question.
I feel like if you're so focused on like the competitiveness of it and just like being the fastest, I feel like you're missing the views. Like you're missing
literally.
a lot of it.
I'm literally missing the views. Yeah. Yeah,
like
100%.
To each our own.
To kind of go along with that, like there's a lot of times we get comments from other LGBTQ people that are like, like, oh, our community doesn't like the outdoors. Like we don't want to do that. We're inside people. We go to the bars, we go to the clubs, we go shopping, we do all this stuff. We get our manis, our petties, all this kind of stuff. We're not outdoor people.
Which is fine.
Which is fine. Well, yeah, doing all that's fine. But there is such a huge part of the LGBTQ community that does love the outdoors. And I wonder if a lot of it is because maybe we don't take it as serious as sometimes. Like we do like to have fun. We might not have everything all together all the time to do the perfect camping trip or the perfect kayaking trip or whatever it might be. But we get out there and we do what we know and what we can, and we have a great time while we're doing it, and hopefully bringing some friends along for the journey, because that's what we want to do. Like so much of LGBT Outdoors is people that do like the outdoors, but when we can get people out there that have never experienced it, and like I'm thinking of a time our Dallas chapter, North Texas chapter, did a kayaking event right outside of Dallas. Like you could see the Dallas skyline right there. And we had 20, 25 people that came to it. Most of them had never kayaked before in their lives. And they do a little training and go out there, and I'm waiting on the shore as they're coming back in, and they have the biggest smiles on their faces, just like hearing them laughing and being like, I didn't know what to expect. And it was so calm and so peaceful and just amazing out there. And I think that a lot of our community could benefit more from that if they would just not necessarily be like, I'm so closed off to it because it's so outdoors, but just like step out there with us and enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, if I hadn't had my life circumstances, I would be in the same boat. I mean, I think a lot of us were told that we weren't outdoorsy. I think we were told that there wasn't a space in the outdoor, community for us, that the outdoors was all, hyper hetero, cis, masculine, rural. Like that's what I thought the outdoors were. Like that's what I thought camping was. I thought trail running was, like the captain of the football team who was kind of a D-bag, like running fast. That's what running was to me, because he was good at track. And I didn't realize that there was a different, especially the trail running culture. If you're familiar with trail running culture at all, it is the most accidentally gay community that has ever existed. Like the aid stations, they often dress up in costumes and they're blasting Cher, and like it's just, we're taking fireball shots at the aid stations. Like it is so so silly and so not what anyone
selling.
I'm not selling it.
You're not selling this at all.
Well, some of us are into that.
just kidding. It sounds like a fun time.
It is, and that's what I didn't realize running could be. I didn't realize it could be fun.
Love it. I love that so much. Yeah. JC or Patrick, like kind of on thinking about wrapping up here a little bit with Jeffrey so we don't take too much of his time, but do either of you have any other questions or comments you want to be sure to get in?
On one of your longer runs, is there any like wow kind of moment that you had? Whether it's like you come over a peak and there's an amazing view, or you see a runner helping out another runner, just something that was just really awe-inspiring.
Um, I mean,
It's okay
yeah.
if
I'm having a hard. I feel like I've had a lot of those. I, the first time it happened. What's that? Westminster Abbey. I think a lot of people have this. I don't think it's unique to me. When I see something that's like overwhelmingly beautiful or like just overwhelming in like a positive way, I am super emotional. Like, and
Yep.
the first time that ever happened in my life, I was in high school on a school trip to London, and we walked in the Westminster Cathedral. I was a music nerd, and there was this like Baroque choral ensemble singing in the Westminster Cathedral as I walked in for the first time. And I was with people that I didn't really know that well, and I was just like an awkward mess. And so I feel like that has happened a lot. I mean, it just happened in Nepal. We just, it was that trip was a really intense physical effort. It was intense for the runners in the group, and it was even more intense for the non-runners. And I was emotional when we got to the top. Seeing everybody like make it, especially the people who were in the back, who honestly none of us thought would make it. That trek alone. They warned us, or they warned me. I didn't share this with the group in order to not scare them, but he, like, before we left, he was like, hey, like, just so you know, statistically, like 20 to 30% of the group aren't going to make it to the top just because of the altitude. He was like, it's not a big deal. That's why we require insurance. It's $800 for a helicopter down, which is not nothing, but it's not the $10,000 it would be in the US. And I was like, okay, cool, got it. Everyone made it.
Wow.
We had school teachers in their late 50s, early 60s on the trip. We had people with asthma, and like everyone. So that's what I'm talking. I'm jumping around topics, but that's what I'm talking about. Like how rewarding this is for me to like get to like be the I guess at least like impetus for them doing something like that. But what was the question that I'm not answering?
Oh, I mean, no, I feel like you did. I was just asking, like, it's kind of jaw-dropping, awe-inspiring moments that you've had. I feel like that fits the bill.
Yeah, I mean, those are definitely a couple of them. And I've also had, I don't even really remember where I was, but I remember vividly like a time that I just sat down on a log and bawled somewhere. It was in Southern California. I guess it probably was over near Malibu. So like, there's also like those kind of moments that I don't know how you rate those. I don't know if those are good or bad or maybe both. But I have lots of moments from random trails that I don't even really know where I was, but I vividly remember like where I was and what was going through my mind.
Classifying them like good or bad, like doesn't necessarily matter. Like it's real and authentic. Like, ooh, like I'm feeling something. Like this is the human experience right here, and like that's amazing.
And the only other thing that comes to mind is it's happened a few times now. Where a lot of my like dance TikToks I film in the desert. Because it's pretty and because there's no risk of anyone getting an influencer in the wild video of me filming myself, embarrassing myself in the desert. But there have been a few different times where I've been sitting like on the tailgate of my truck with a beer after I just like spent 3 hours filming myself doing stupid dances or sketch videos in the desert and like getting paid for it, where like I've gotten super emotional because I'm just like, what? Like how does this even exist? And how did I hit this jackpot? Because it's the like, if you told 10-year-old Jeffrey that this is like what he was going to be doing, I mean, first of all, he wouldn't believe you, but he'd be so freaking excited. This is literally the adult version of what I did in my parents' bay window, doing my one-man version of Les Mis. I'm literally doing the adult version of that. And like, I just like infinitely lucky. And I know when people see me, I think part of the appeal is like, oh, look at that chubby guy that you wouldn't expect to like be running or be dancing. Isn't that interesting? But aside from the running part, it actually makes perfect sense. I mean, nobody from my childhood or nobody that's known me for years, I took dance lessons from when I was a little kid. I was a finalist for for tap dancing for Mr. Dance America when I was in high school. So it seems, I think, really shocking and unexpected to people, but it actually makes so much sense that I'm doing what I'm doing now. But that's another time that I've been really awkwardly emotional in nature, I guess.
Love it. Love it.
That's incredible. Love that. JC, you have any final comments?
Okay. Just one question. Like, on your travels, aside from like the basics, like clothes, like what's the one thing you always make sure you take with you?
Ooh,
that's good. There are a few things. Number one, a corkscrew, like a wine opener. Number one for
Nice.
wine, but it's really surprising how handy the little knife and the corkscrew like come in for like fixing things and whatnot. So that stays in my bag.
Nice.
And also the one thing, even when we were like trekking through the Himalayas, do you know Lush? I worked at Lush. It's like an all natural like soap and cosmetics company. I worked at Lush in my early 20s, and one of the things there is all their products are made with like whole food or vegetable or botanical ingredients, and we had to learn what was in them. And I realized like I could be making a lot of that myself. So anyway, I make my own grapeseed oil moisturizer, and that it goes with me everywhere. I hauled that shit through the Himalayas. Can I curse? Whoops. You might have to bleep that out. I hauled that stuff up the mountain to the Himalayas. That's one thing. This pasty white skin cannot go unmoisturized. In fact, I just posted a story today. I posted a PSA because it has come to my attention that there are a lot of people just moisturizing their like face. And I was like, sugars, you gotta push it into your hairline. You have to moisturize your neck. Like you in 30 years, you're gonna thank me. So that's my mom was really into skincare. I think it's like the one thing I have. Like I might always be chubby, but I've taken care of my skin. So that's a badge of pride.
Those would be
that's great.
2 items that would not have been on my Jeffrey bingo card for sure.
No, well, if you want to know if it works, I'm actually 63. So
can you send me some of that shit then? Because I need to be getting on that.
I was just gonna say, psych. This has been a 1-hour infomercial for my new product line.
We lured them all in.
They could see me.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Well, you look great. So.
Thanks.
It's working for.
I'm 41 and I don't look a day over 40.
Well, you definitely don't look 63. I'll give you that for sure.
Thank you.
So I would love to know, like, in wrapping up, any final thoughts that you might have that you want to share with our community, our listeners, especially maybe people that feel like the outdoors isn't for them or they can't do something. I feel like you can never have too much motivation and too much encouragement for people. And we have such a wide variety of people that listen to our podcast too. We have people of the queer community, we have allies, we have people that write to us that aren't out and live vicariously through our guests and our podcast, and not sure if they ever could come out. So there's a wide variety of people that listen, and we always want to try to like make sure that they are feeling wanted and know that the outdoors is for them. So I'm just curious what kind of little nugget Jeffrey might have for our listeners as well.
Well, I mean, first and foremost, like there is without question a place for you in the outdoor community. It doesn't matter why you think there might not be, whether it's sexuality or race or socioeconomic class or anything, there is, like, without question. I know for a fact there are people who have not had the same experience as me, but I have never, luckily, I have never dealt with an ounce of homophobia ever in trolls online are a different story, but
Sure.
actual
Sure.
humans who are running, who are in the outdoors with me, never, not once. That's not to say that we're done, because again, I have lots of friends who have not had that same experience. So the work is not done. I think that's the most infuriating thing is, when I'm out there, doing this advocacy work with Brooks, I often get the response like, really? Is that happening? Like, is that really a problem? Yeah, it is. Yes, it is still. Like, yes. Like, and maybe we don't have thousands of stories of like overt crimes at race start lines, but there aren't enough gay people at starting lines. There aren't enough Black people at starting lines. There aren't enough Indigenous people at starting lines. So just because people don't feel like attacked when they're running a trail race doesn't mean that they necessarily feel included all the time. So we still have work to do. That being said, there is a space, and there aren't very many communities, especially the trail running community. There aren't very many outdoor communities that are going to be more open and accepting of people who are different, whatever that means. So first of all, there's a place for you. So if that's keeping you from it, stop it. Get out there, DM me, and tell me where you are, and I know a gay run club. I know someone to connect you with. So DM me. And then when it comes to like doing crazy hard things like 100-miler or a 50-miler or a 5K, I think you just have to do it. Like it's the time is now. And again, it's about biting off small nuggets. So, the anything worth doing is overwhelming. Like when you think of it as a whole, but literally totally. Anything can be achieved by like biting off small bits. So just do it. And it goes for everything. It's not just like running a ultra marathon or doing a triathlon or something. I mean, it's the same for like that business that you always wanted to start, but you've never started working on, or the cookbook you wanted to write, or whatever. Everyone has like the thing. Everyone has a thing that has been in the back of their head. If you really are honest with yourself, there's something back there that you've wanted to do that you haven't done. And like today is literally the day. I mean, not to be a cliche, but like you might not be here next year. And so this is it. So take the first step. It might be doing a quick Google search to figure out what you need for a business license for that bakery, finding out how you start putting a book proposal together. Like it can be 5 minutes a day. And suddenly a few years later, you have your first finished cookbook. So start today. That's my advice.
Love it. Today.
So good.
Good stuff, Jeffrey. Love that. Where can people learn more about you and follow you and check out your fun dancing in the woods and all that good stuff?
Oh my gosh. Well, everything is at jjb.life. That's my website. Or I'm on all the socials at Jeffrey Binney.
Great.
And
be sure to
put
go
all
follow
that
him
in the show notes for sure.
Yeah.
As well
thanks for having me.
A link to his episode of LGBT Outdoors Live.
Yeah.
And his film Once Is Enough.
Yeah.
Which I'll totally watch.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join us and share with our listeners and our community. We're very honored to have you, and it's great to reconnect with you again.
Yeah, ditto. And thanks for having me. It's pretty cool stuff that y'all are doing. There's what a difference from when we were little kids. I realize what a luxury it is to be able to say like, oh yeah, there's a space for you in the outdoor community, because I don't know if there was 20 years ago, but there is now.
Yeah, there is now.
We're all working on it.
Yeah.
Yep, definitely.
Let's make it better.
Definitely. Yep. Yeah. All right. Well, everybody go check out Jeffrey's website, Instagram, watch the movie Once Is Enough. He is an amazing guy that we are honored and glad to call a friend here at LGBT Outdoors. And so We hope that you enjoyed this episode, and we want you to get out, enjoy the outdoors, check out our website, LGBT Outdoors, and until next time, get out there. Thank you again for joining us this week. If you have a campfire conversation story you would like to share, please email it to us at info@lgbtoutdoors.com. Follow us on Instagram at LGBT Outdoors and join the community at facebook.com/groups/LGBT Outdoors. Become a partner by joining our Patreon, where you'll gain access to monthly bonus stories and exclusive content. For more information on today's episode, check out the show notes. For information about LGBT Outdoors, LGBT Outdoor Fest, local chapters, or to sign up for our newsletter, visit lgbtoutdoors.com. And if you're enjoying the show, please rate, review, and follow wherever you listen to podcasts.